So next, no stranger to the microphone in Singapore. Antony Lewis has written a book, Bitcoin and Blockchains, Basics. You guys should all buy it, I get a cut. 1 BTC every sale. Yeah, up from corner, please join us.
Thank you very much, Julian, and good morning, everyone. So the lawyers have managed to make law really interesting for me, so my job is to try and make technology really interesting for you. Okay, I'm going to talk about private blockchains, which is my favourite subject, given that I've come from R3. R3 is a company I work for. Our product is software called Corda. Corda is node software that lets you create, set up private blockchain networks to record your securities on. So I basically get to shill for 10 minutes. This is wonderful. What's being built? So I'm going to provide an overview of now what's being built out in the whole ecosystem. And the answer is everything. We used to think that, we used to talk about the disruption of the disintermediation, the reduction of third parties, but actually many third parties are necessary. So everything is being built out. Both on the issuance side, that's all the advisory and the issuance service and the tokenization platforms. I think next you'll hear from JK from, I think next year Securities. You've got a whole suite of tools from on the investor side. So software and companies to help you manage your assets. And I think later we'll hear from some custodians. And in the middle, all the middlemen as well, the infrastructure, the exchanges, the market makers, the OTC. So everything is being built out, and it's being built out today. It's happening right now. Things are going live. People are getting licenses. Regulators are catching up, and companies are preparing such that as soon as the licenses are available, they'll get them and they'll be up and running this year, next year. It's not 10 years ago. It's not 10 years away. And in terms of the asset lifecycle, I think Julian talked about this in his talk earlier on. You still have the full lifecycle and all the processes involved, from issuance, defining and creating the token, registering them, assigning the tokens to the initial investors, the initial owners. The settlement, how are you going to settle this? When a token moves from party A to party B, what's actually happened? Where has it happened? What's the legal basis for that transfer of ownership? The servicing, which is something which I think is under-discussed. So we talk a lot about the issuance of a token, but during the lifetime of that token, things happen. Shareholders get to vote, or token holders might get to vote. You might get paid distributions or dividends or coupons. And someone's got to manage all of that, whether that's done at the custodian or whether that's done somewhere else in those charts that we saw earlier on. All of that process has to be managed, and it's down to things like, okay, so a coupon's going to be paid, or a dividend's going to be paid, right? How do you want the money? Do you want it through the banking system? What's the process to get all the correct bank account details from all the token holders? Or do you want it in stable coins? Do you want it in Tether or Paxos? So if it's a stable coin, which stable coin, on which network? So there's loads of things to think about in the life cycle and the servicing of the asset, not just the kind of issuance and the destruction of it, which is what most people have been thinking about so far. And then finally, the secondary market is the exchange, which I think people are familiar with the concepts here. This is the order books, the buying and selling. So I've got a few phones going up. I'll leave this up on the screen for a couple of seconds. Julian, are these slides available to all the people? So, okay.
You hold the phones. We'll send you the whole slide decks.
No, take photos. Let's put it on social media. Hashtag InvestaX. And R3, of course. Okay, so what's the difference between public and private blockchains, or permissioned and permissionless blockchains? Well, I'm here to tell you that private networks are better, funnily enough, are better for things, for securities, for things which are regulated, for things that you really care about. Now, if you want to build a computer game and breed cats, then go ahead and use the thing that is most accessible, that most people have wallets for, which is Ethereum. That's probably a better network, because if Ethereum forks, then you've got two cats, and that makes you twice as happy. You do not want to have two shareholder registries that get out of sync. Okay. So here are some kind of points of differentiation. And the architectures of the public and private blockchains are super different. And that's because the problem statements are different. So usually you take a problem statement and then you apply technology to try and solve it. So with the public blockchains, how do I create unstoppable, right? So with Bitcoin, it's how do I create unstoppable cash for the internet? How do I make a system that can't be shut down, which allows any party to transfer value to any other party without necessarily going through specific intermediaries and that can't be shut down? How do I create unstoppable cash? And for Ethereum, it was how do I create an unstoppable global machine that can run arbitrary code, that can run whatever code you throw at it, which is how Ethereum was created. You have smart contracts, which is computer code, you upload it, and the thing will run. And that's the idea of it, and it's quite hard to stop. So that's the problem statement, and that's why you have these vast decentralized networks with 10,000 participants and maybe 10 miners, which doesn't sound that decentralized for those ones. And a private network, the problem statement is very different. How do I make business processes more efficient and still stay compliant within the law? Can you see how different those problem statements are, and therefore how different the solutions should be, must be? Okay, so then what are the other characteristics? Network participation and control. I use the word control. It's quite a generic word, I know. So who's allowed to use the network and who controls the network? With public or permissionless blockchains, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., the block creators are unrestricted. You do not need permission to start creating blocks. You just need money to buy computers. And the validators, so the non-mining participants, are unrestricted too. Anyone can do that. In private networks, typically the participants are gated and the roles are restricted. You need to know who's doing what. And typically between parties there'll be legal agreements saying here's what you're paying me to do, here's what I'm doing, and then people can sue each other when things go wrong. There's no one to sue if Ethereum goes wrong and suddenly your transactions fail for whatever reason. In terms of the identities, by default on public networks, your identities are unknown. You wiggle your mouse a bit, you create a public and private key pair, and that's your identity. And then it's up to you to go and tell the world and prove to the world that you own this account. In private networks, typically your identities are linked to real-world identities. And in corners, especially, you need to go and get a certificate or have your keys signed by someone to match, someone who kind of attests to matching your real-world identity to your public keys. Okay? And that's quite necessary when you're talking about securities in most jurisdictions. In terms of verifying transactions, in public networks, everyone validates everything, everyone sees everything. Privacy is, well, everyone sees every transaction. Whether you can map accounts to real-world identities or not is a question mark, but everyone sees and everyone validates everything. In private blockchains, typically you either have trusted parties, trusted nodes to do this, or it's the parties who are transacting with each other who are validating their transactions bilaterally. And then finally, for throughput, with public blockchains, the bottleneck is determined by the size of the network. So if you have 10,000 computers geographically dispersed around the world, things are slow. I think on Ethereum, you're getting, at the moment, and I know there are upgrades in the pipeline, and I love public blockchains as well, but you can get about 10 trades a second on Ethereum. There's someone in this room who comes from a large organization who's been playing with Corda and got it running on good computers that they sell. That's gone up to 900 trades a second, so it works pretty well. You get more throughput, you can push more trades a second through private networks, typically. So on the private side, it's a bit more scalable. And in terms of the governance, for public blockchains are governed by Twitter, Reddit, and memes. Did I miss anything?
Telegram.
And Telegram chats. Yeah, that's the governance structure. But that's deliberate, right? The whole point is you're trying to create unstoppable something. If you have a central point of governance, you can stop it, right? Whereas on private blockchains, they tend to be a bit more organized, and there's a legal basis for governance. That was the meat of the presentation. The rest is just fun. So what do we really want? Does anyone remember these guys?
Yes.
I know how old you are. 1996. Okay, so what do we really want? Why are we doing this? Why are we sitting in this room? Why is Julian and I spending so much time and energy trying to advocate for digital securities offerings? We love end-to-end digital experiences. We don't like paper anymore. He doesn't even sign things on paper anymore. It's a much better experience. But the problem with anything digital is the copy and paste problem, or what computer geeks call the double spend problem, which is once you've got something in computer format, you can replicate it, you can duplicate it. So that sucks for money, it sucks for shares, it sucks for anything where you need digital assets. So blockchains have come along and through various mechanisms, depending on the architecture of them, they've said, well, we can prevent or at least detect and prevent someone trying to spend the same thing twice, someone trying to take a digital asset and do two things with it. Okay, and that is new. That is actually new. Never in the history of IT has that been done before Bitcoin came along. And we also have this feeling that we don't like all-powerful third parties who like to turn the screws on things and make loads of money and don't innovate and don't provide customers a good experience. So we're trying to reduce dependence on this. So that's what we really want. And through these DSO mechanisms, people also like to talk about better liquidity, 24/7 markets, cheaper and faster settlement. This is all the stuff you've heard before. So Whisper, interoperability, fractional ownership, automated compliance. So the programs do the compliance for you instead of you as a company having to submit things. Transaction finality is very important. When does something which was mine become yours? And actually on public blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum, there's no such thing because there's always a chance that the blockchain gets unwound a little bit or a lot. Okay, so if you're a regulated entity, you'll have read your regulations. You need to be able to pinpoint a point in time where something's changed hands from this party to this party. And that's all because if someone goes bankrupt, you've got to know who owns what at that specific point in time. So Core is a platform that we work with. It's similar to proof of work blockchains, but differs in some significant ways. So here are some ways where it differs. We don't in Core specifically, and sometimes this is true for other private blockchains. No 51% tax or no chain splits, no forks, which is great because as soon as your chain splits, you've got two shareholder registries and that kind of sucks. It's more scalable. We have transaction privacy, so that means on Corda specifically, if I pay you, none of the other parties see that transaction unless they need to. There may be some registry that needs to see that, but by default, other people don't see that. We don't have orphan blocks. An orphan block is where you think a transaction's gone through, and then like a few minutes later, you're like, oh shit, that didn't really happen in the first place, which is a characteristic of proof of work blockchains. And our smart contracts can evolve. They're not immutable. They don't stay the same. That's a big problem with Ethereum. You upload it, and then people find holes in it, and then extract money from it or hack it. And there's a famous, the DAO hack was famous from a few years ago. Real-time processing. We use Java, which is a commonly understood programming language compared to some of the public blockchain smart contract languages. You get to control who's in your network, which is very important, as the lawyers will tell you. We don't have a dependency, private blockchains in general don't have a dependency on a specific currency. So I'm talking about gas, right? I'm talking about when you make a transaction, you've got to pay a fee in usually a cryptocurrency. In Ethereum, it's Ether. And then there's actually platform governance and a roadmap for the future. So these are reasons why, if you're issuing DSOs, you may want to consider what kind of database is this being recorded on, and if you like these things, then you may want to think about private rather than public. Okay, so it's time to get off now. The minimum viable network is an issuance and exchange and a custody node, and then you can expand from there. I think everyone knows what these nodes do now. And we can have a chat after this if you're interested. Julian wanted me to put some real case studies in, because so far we haven't talked about any specific things. So the Swiss Stock Exchange is building a whole new stock exchange, digital, and they started in like September 2016 on this journey. They've ended up picking Corda as the platform. So that's scheduled to go live. They're going testing at the moment. Scheduled to go live in Q1 next year, and that will be all digital. The only thing that's not on the blockchain is the order book, the order matching. As soon as the trade is confirmed, everything's recorded on a blockchain. And the other case study is high-quality liquid asset exchange. It's not just shares. Government bonds, baskets of government bonds, so these really are derivatives, are being tokenized and recorded and being passed around and settled within minutes rather than by the end of the day. So the granularity, the resolution is getting much better in terms of how you can move your assets around. All right, thank you very much.
So the trick is to use up your time limit and then save the case studies to the end, so I'll still let you go. Thanks.